I'm going to go with the band Nothing Face.
Yeah, I figured you would. So that's why I said I had like 6 bands on my 5, and now I can let you speak to it, and I won't have to.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Metal Maniacs podcast. I'm your host, Jay Ingersoll, and I'm here with a fellow skeleton of society.
Yeah, your boy Mod.
That's a classic throwback right there.
I love that beat. I think
that's a good one.
It might be the original gent riff. Just locked in with the fucking drums on that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Good album, too.
Yeah, always
Shout
jammers.
Shout out Tom Moran, Slayer. Love you guys.
So what's going on with you, buddy? What's new? Anything?
Got out last night to watch a good 90s cover band.
Yeah.
Friends of ours.
Yep.
And that was nice. Wife let me out.
Yeah.
It was weird. I was dragging my feet.
Yeah.
I didn't feel right about leaving the house without my wife or, my wife and kid. But
Right.
I was playing it to the last minute. And I saw a group chat come through on Facebook. Like, hey, is anybody coming out? And so now they knew that I was aware. Like, they knew I was aware. And I was like, well, now I kind of feel like if I can, I will.
Yeah.
Ran it by Amy, and she's like, you can go. That's fine. And then even still, I was just like, I didn't call anybody else.
Right.
I was like, I'll know a bunch of people there, but it's weird because you're not out there with anybody. So you kind of, I was telling one guy this, I was like, you kind of glom on to a person.
Yeah.
And then they move their conversation, and then all of a sudden, like, they shift, and their body, like, their back's to your face, and you're like, bye.
Yeah.
Like, you just go find the next person to glom onto, But thankfully, they played really well, and I just, for the most part, just watched the music.
Yeah.
So, good.
That's kind of like the Die show a couple weeks ago. I just went by myself because I just wanted to go and hang out, talk to a couple people, and, it wasn't really like the bro down thing or nothing.
Right.
But, of course, you're going to see a bunch of bros there. So
Yeah.
But, man, I actually been sleeping good. I feel good. I fucking been getting some good workouts in, so I've been feeling good lately.
You look like it. Either that shirt's too small or you
so,
got bigger.
So this is a discussion. Like, this is a large, and I told Shauna because I had a shirt on underneath. She's like, don't wear the shirt underneath. She's like, it doesn't look good. I'm like, okay. Then I put this on. I'm like, is this shirt too small? She's like, it looks fine. It is what it is. I'm like, okay, well, it is a large, but maybe I should go extra large.
I think your arms are just pipes, dude. So, if you wear an extra large, you might be swimming in it.
Right, yeah.
But you wear a large, and it's just like, it's because you work out.
It's like that weird in between thing, some sizes too are the large. You would think some larges fit me good, and then some larges I'm kind of like, do I look foolish because it's so tight?
Right.
But it's hard to, how do you know?
I just bought a pair of jeans. Didn't really need them, but they're jet black. All my black jeans fade. And I'm like, ooh, I need a new pair of black jeans. Like the blackest.
Ones.
Yeah. So they're my size. I feel no need to try these on. I know what size jeans I wear.
Yeah.
I fucking get home and try these things on, and I'm like, Jesus, they're tight. And I'm like, all my other jeans fit. And Amy's like, well, what brand is it? And I tell her, and she's like, yeah, that stuff always runs small for me too. So I'm like, yeah, I'm bumming. I bought a pair of jeans, and I'm wearing them until they fade.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to put them in the pile with the other faded black jeans.
Your gray jeans.
Yeah, I hate it.
Because they kind of fade right along the pant, like right here too, like on, on your leg, on the top of your leg or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and then some of them stay kind of black.
Yeah.
There's just the areas. So
I kind of want to not wear black all of the time because I think, in part because there's a certain person in the world who was seen wearing it a lot, and I was like, fuck that guy. I don't want to be associated with that look anymore. Also because, like, it's summer, and I don't want to be sweating my ass off in black attire everywhere I go. But I did see these black jeans, and I couldn't stop myself from getting them. I was like, one more pair, why not?
Hey, why not? Well, real quick before we get into this, today we're going to be talking about top 5 forgotten bands. We're going to pick 5 from each of us, and then we'll have some honorable mentions. So that's what our episode is about today. We wanted to do a topic episode, kind of haven't done one of these in a while, and thought this would be a cool topic. So before we get into this, though, I see you got your Rivers of Nile hoodie on, and just to say that album is fucking insanely incredible. I couldn't believe how amazing it is.
Yeah.
So like you said in the text yesterday, it's everything we talk about.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally, I don't know if any album can top that this year. But
that's where I'm at with it. We got 6 months to go.
yeah, we got a long time
And
to
the
go. We
Shadows
got
of
Shadow of Intent coming
yep.
out. And then, so there are some things out there that could probably rival it. But, man, I listened to that Callous Cowboys this morning, too, and I was just like, this is incredible.
Okay.
It's like Dillinger mixed with Faith No More, mixed with some BT Bam,
Yeah.
and then there's like, it's kind of chaotic, but then they have their choruses and callbacks, and there's just great, clean singing. It's insane. I didn't realize. Like, I've heard a lot about those bands, and now you've even spoke about them before, like maybe their EP or something, or their album 2 years ago.
2023, they had like an EP album.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot about them, but this album just came out on May 16th. So I popped it in this morning. I actually listened to Caliban on my walk, which was really good too.
Nice.
But then, I popped that on, and I was just like,
this is it. Fire.
My forehead just was like crinkled up because I'm like doing this shit. Like my eyes are. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
That's good to know. That's good
just to know. It's a totally different thing than the Rivers of Nile. You know, but like. Hearing that too, I'm like, holy shit! I just was taken back by two amazing albums. Like, that's how good the Callous Cowboys is. I'm like, put it on the level of that Rivers of Nile. Like,
I heard that.
It's different things, and I love that Rivers of Nile because I'm a death metal dude, and there's some fucking death metal going on there, man. I love it.
So a couple things. For one, I'm really happy to hear you speak to the Rivers of Nile so highly. I had such high hopes for that album, and I mean seriously high, because their last two albums, and I know they've got more work.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love the last two albums front to back.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, can these guys really put out a third album that I'm going to love front to back? And they did, and it's amazing the addition by subtraction. Like, they lose a rhythm guitarist, and they lose the lead vocalist.
Mm-hmm.
So Biggs, their bassist, steps up to the main fry vocal, but they recruit Andy from Black Crown Initiate.
Yep.
And so he can do the clean vocals, and he's an excellent guitar player. Like, he's top tier. And the songwriting is exactly what you would hope for from these guys. It's like a marked improvement even, and I didn't think there was much room for improvement.
Yeah.
But Callous Cowboys, love those guys. Love that band. Looking forward to listening to that album myself. I listened to the new Viljarta, the Thal, and I thought it was really good. I actually have 8 minutes remaining on it, so I'm not all the way through it, but you can get like 3 minutes into it and be like, I don't need this in my life, because it pretty much is what it is.
The same, yeah.
It's like, that's the style.
Yeah.
But I loved it because it got a lot of atmosphere on it. They do the fry vocal a lot more than in the past, and they do the clean vocal.
Okay.
So I appreciate that. There's a lot of, there's no songwriting. They just kind of go from like riff
Part
or
by
theme.
part,
And then they just kind of move into the next thing. But they just do some really interesting like stops, like all of a sudden a quick pause or a moment of silence, and then, or they'll just do like for one beat, like just this weird distortion stomp. Like, you'll just hear like a weird production element come in. So I love it. I'll have more to say about it. Whether or not it's in my top 10, maybe, because it's so unique.
Yeah.
But at the same point, it's like, how often am I going to listen to it? But I did enjoy sitting in it and listening to it. It makes you think. It's unique, and it's very compelling. So I enjoyed that one. That one's definitely one for people to check out when we, But we'll be talking about those albums, I'm sure, in November, December here.
For sure.
When we're doing the top 10.
Yeah, there's I've listened to quite a few albums already this year, and there's going to be some. It's going to be hard to put a top 10 together, honestly.
So I got a running list of mine going, and I use different color highlights for like, okay, definitely top 10.
Yeah.
Or okay, I listened to the whole album, and then some notes. Or I'm about halfway in. I may or may not come back to it, just because like I've listened to enough to know what it is. So. Like, it's not going to be in my top 10. I'll maybe an honorable mention, maybe not. But then there's just like band name, album name, and I haven't touched some albums. I'm behind on a few.
Yeah.
Plus, we keep shooting each other back and forth. Like, hey, check this out, by the way. And
I want to make sure I get your list. That way, this year when we do it, we can be like at least familiar. A couple songs, even like last year when you listened. Maybe it wasn't for you, but you could listen to a couple songs and get what it was. You know, so. I just want to make sure there's so many releases, so I just want to make sure we're pretty close on them. But
yeah.
And make sure that if there's anything really badass like that Callous Cowboys, that we kind of emphasize that, so we make sure we both dig that, you know what I mean, or dig into it. So.
Good band on the come up.
But all right, you ready to get into this, brother man?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
Let's try our best.
So
here.
you're my guest of honor. I always let you go first.
All right, so I'm gonna bring one up. I actually just thought about this band the other day. On the topic of this, I'm like, I want to reach for one, and I look at my CD rack, and then lo and behold, I remember the big red Clifford days of the truck, driving around, just the freedom, man.
The metal bowls.
Yep,
the metal bowls with the fucking screens in them from the sink that we stole all of our parents' screens out of the sink.
The Mexican brown swag,
the swag,
the brick weed.
Yeah, just more seeds than stems.
So. One of these we got a lot of miles out of was Misery Loves Company.
Oh, yeah, dude, what a good pick.
Yeah.
What a good pick.
I thought you might appreciate that, especially given like how nostalgic that first album was.
Yeah.
Like, we just listened to the absolute shit out of this album. And they went on to put out a couple more albums. You got Self-Titled in 94. You've got Not Like Them in 97. And then you've got their third album, Your Vision Was Never Mine to Share. I absolutely love that album, but there's a lot of growth that took place from 94 to 2000. By the time you get to the 2000 album, now you still have the distorted guitars come in, but everything is really polished, clean, and it's like a really dark Depeche Mode vibe.
Okay.
You know, it's not as angry and distorted and almost panic-inducing as like the Self-Titled.
Yeah.
And I didn't listen to a lot of the 97 album. I think I was pretty much stuck on the 94 album. And then I missed the 97 album at first. I eventually listened to it, and it's not bad at all. It's kind of more of the same from the first album, I feel like.
Yeah.
They stayed kind of in that vein.
Yeah.
But the jump to Your Vision Was Never Mine to Share was huge. You see a departure from some of that anger. And now it's just this morose sadness pretty much front to back in this album, but I love it. I listened to so much of that album, and then they disappeared for a good 19 years.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
And then you've got Zero, and I saw it along the way. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but I didn't listen to it.
Yeah.
I was, probably distracted by life, and I know I think two things were happening. One, I was moving out of the job I was in into the next job. So a lot of my focus was like not music related, period.
Yeah.
And then secondly, we were on the cusp of COVID. So I don't think that album got a lot of promotion.
Oh, yeah.
They probably whenever it dropped in 2019, and then the next thing you know.
What a terrible time to drop an album.
Yeah, shut it right down.
Yeah.
But,
especially on a 19-year comeback.
Yeah, no
you're
kidding.
Trying to get some kind of traction again,
Yeah.
I would be interested to listen to this because I absolutely love that self-titled one from 1994.
Yeah.
And that's usually not my style. I'm not one to reach for Depeche Mode or,
Yeah.
those kind of bands.
Well, I mean, I listen
KMFDM.
I listen to some Nine Inch Nails, though. So that for me, it's like it just depends. Fear Factory, Nine Inch Nails, now you're a little bit heavier, angrier. But
darker.
But at the same token, like the Nine Inch Nails can be pretty chill.
Yeah.
Depending on what album or whatever. And there's a lot of Nin that I haven't listened to, but I feel like I listened to a song or something from it and then just kind of like it was mid and I didn't feel a strong need to listen to the rest of the album.
Back.
But I absolutely love this album or this band, and I feel like I do owe it to them to check it out. I think the main members of this band over time were the two, Patrick Weirin and Origin Ornclue. And I think Origin did some production for In Flames over the years.
Oh, okay.
Some mixing, mastering, engineering, something like that. So his name will, if you flip over some middle of the road or middle era In Flames, you'll see his name on the back of the album as cool. Production or engineering or something like that. Or I think production. But I don't know. Again, so this is just one of those bands that they had something going, but not enough momentum to keep it going. Whatever the reason was, and then they turn up after 19 years and drop an album, and then nothing. It's here. We're now 6 years removed from that time, and we haven't heard hide nor hair from them. I'm on their wiki right now. We got in the same universe, but doesn't say anything about like a breakup or going back to a hiatus or anything like that. I just feel like there wasn't enough momentum in the first place. They had enough material to do an album, get together and knock one out. And then COVID or whatever, they just decide like, no tours. You don't see them pop up nowhere doing anything.
Here we are 5 years later.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, how metal is this band? Kind of depends. Like you start out in the beginning, I think they're pretty metal. I think it's an industrial metal, like you said, Ministry, KMFDM.
Yep, that type of stuff.
If you're into that, there's a lot of drum programming. It's not your traditional metal.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's a band that, again, the whole point of the show today is to kind of like dig up some of those gems from the past that had something going. Yeah. We really did appreciate it. And we listened to a lot of it, and then they just disappeared for whatever reason. And I think Misery Loves Company was one that, as I'm looking at the CD rack, I'm like, yeah.
Yep, that's a good pick, man.
I love those. Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's a good pick. Yeah, I also did the same thing. I'm like, I just look at my CD rack.
Yeah. I mean, I Googled a ton of names, but I wouldn't want to speak to a band name that I don't like have,
right?
Or I don't have much knowledge of. So these guys, I would say if you want to get into a really dark headspace, listen to that third album. But it's not going to be as heavy or blistering or chaotic as the first album or the first two albums for that matter. I listened to it a lot. I was kind of like that time, 2000, you graduated from high school, maybe some community college or working, but life's changed and you listen to the heavy metal and the death metal for years, from 94 to 2000, right. You're like kind of heard everything. So you start branching out a little bit. And that was one that had a profound impact on me. I was happy to find that third album after the years that we drove around listening to the first album.
Oh yeah.
So it was something that I could definitely appreciate. Not a lot of screaming on that album, No. He's singing on the third album, like mostly front to back, but I wish they would come back. I wish they would find a way to make it happen and be a band again, because that would be. And some bands on my list, maybe they'll fall into the honorable mention.
Yeah.
At the end, they were going to be on my list, but they're like making a comeback now.
Yeah, that's one issue that I've come across when I was looking at bands too. I'm like, well, these bands are coming back, but and so they might be an honorable mention. But
yeah, it's still fair to talk about them. I feel like if they fell off for 10 to 15 years, like we can talk about that. But
all right. So you ready for mine?
Yeah, hit me.
My first one. So I'm gonna go with the band Nothing Face.
Yeah, I figured you would. So that's why I said I had like 6 bands on my 5, and now I can let you speak to it. I won't have to.
So they're. Nothing Face was an American alternative metal band formed in Washington, D.C. in 1994. Okay. So they emerged as one of the more emotionally raw and musically intense acts of the late 90s and early 2000s metal scenes. And they were kind of lumped into like the new metal category. But I always saw them as something different. But because they had some of those rhythmic bouncy parts and stuff like that, but I mean they got really, really heavy, and to me they're almost more like a Pantera, and then they had some softer stuff as they moved on, and some more melodic shit. But
it had a lot of diversity. They did get lumped in with the new metal, but that's just because they were a product of that time, that era,
exactly.
But I think it's fair to put them in when they're almost with that groove metal. But you could also, and I don't really like this term that much because it's too much of a broad brushstroke, but they're like an alternative metal.
Yeah.
But I don't mean it in terms of like sounding like alternative
rock. Yeah.
It's alternative metal because it doesn't fit in with that traditional metal songwriting structure. We're not talking about big four thrash metal style. These guys were onto like a new vibe that they had kind of come up with. And it doesn't even necessarily fall in with that Pantera, but it's close because you got the grooves, you got the fry vocal, you got the clean vocal.
Yep. The heavy rhythms.
Yep. But it's hard to compare anything to Pantera just based on there being a dime. But yeah. Tell me more about the Nothing Face if you got. Because
so the original lineup consisted of Matt Holt on vocals, Tom Maxwell on guitar, Bill Gall on bass, and Chris Hawk on drums.
Okay.
Holt replaced the original vocalist David Gabbers shortly after the band formed. His arrival marked a dramatic shift towards darker lyrical themes and a broader vocal range. So, he kind of did both fries and singing. He was really good with the singing melodies. And I think he was one of the main reasons why that band really stuck out, because of his melodies and his vocal patterns and, you know, his catchy lyrics.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they almost had like a industrial vibe to them a little bit, just because of how heavy they were. They didn't have any of the industrial sounds, but they were kind of like geared towards that to me, because of the samples and that kind of shit in there. You know, then they have some of them just really emotionally, like the song, I think it's Bleeder or whatever. It's like just
Yep, I love that one.
yeah. So, they came out with their debut, self-titled, in 1995. Pretty raw album. Some good songs on there though. And then Pacifier, a little step up from but Pacifier, they did have some really catchy songs on that, but you could still see that they were just trying to make their footing. They were starting to get their own sound. I don't know why I keep hitting that today. And then in 1998 comes out An Audio Guide to Everyday Atrocity. And this, to me, I don't know if we've ever talked about this record on the show before. Maybe we have. I don't.
In passing.
This is one of the best records I've ever heard, period.
Yeah. I used to own it. I can't tell you what happened to it, but I remember it was the thing to listen to at the time. Like, even if you had it, a lot of times we didn't buy the same albums because, you know, we just hang out all the time and listen to them.
And we or burn it or
yeah,
recorded on tape, because we were doing that too.
This is definitely one that I had to have, and I miss owning it currently. You know, if it got broken along the way or, you know, lost in a move or something, but it's a shame. I've held on to most of my CDs over the years, but that was one that I listened to quite a bit. It had an impact on me as well. So
yeah, to me, like I said, one of the best albums I've ever heard. I just love the songwriting on this. I don't think there's one bad song on the whole thing.
Sure.
I love how it goes between. There's like a song where he does, I think the first song he does like all heavy vocals, then the second song he does a mix, then the third song he just does clean vocals. So it's like it's a cool way that they set up the beginning of that album. And then they have that break in the middle that's that slow, like think that's Bleeder, the one that builds. But some great songwriting on this. One of those albums that you're like, man, I wish more people heard it. And then come in 2000 Violence. This was a great album as well.
yeah.
This one stuck with me. Oh, I guess Bleeder was actually on Violence, but yeah, so another great record, kind of picked up where this last one left off.
I think you might be thinking of Sleeper on the other one.
Oh, Sleeper, yeah. Okay, yep, you're right. But yeah, Violence was great too. I loved almost every minute of this record as well. I thought his singing was even better. And then they come out with Skeletons in 2003. That was basically their last album.
Yeah,
I know they came out with a few things after this, it looks like. Maybe like a single here or there or something, but Skeletons, I like Skeletons too, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be. It was like even less metal.
Yeah.
It was more hard rock.
Yeah.
More singy, songy. But there's still some fry vocals and still some edge on it.
Yeah.
And it was one of those albums that actually grew on me.
Okay.
So I fuck with the Skeletons. But yeah, as far as Nothing Face goes, you know, they played that Tattoo the Earth festival.
Yeah.
So they did get some recognition there. They toured around. They were at the intersection a lot. I remember. And they did their thing, but they never really got that recognition or to that point where I thought they probably could have got, you know?
Right.
But yeah, and then unfortunately, you know, there's been, over the years, there was all kinds of lineup changes and then struggles. Gall and Huck departed, returned, and left again. And then so they attempted multiple times to reunite or reboot the project. Personal issues and health problems derailed the brand's trajectory ultimately.
Yeah.
And then, go ahead, buddy.
I was just going to say, I know that Tom joined Hell Yeah. That was probably sometime after the band was completely done.
Yep.
And as you're probably just about to mention, we lost Matt Holt in the last couple of years, I believe.
Yep, passed away on April 15th, 2017.
Okay.
He was battling degenerative disease. He was only 39.
I didn't realize it had been that many years already. 2017, you say?
Yep. So, and then, Tom went on to achieve success with Hell Yeah. And, of course, that band also featured Vinnie Paul in that band. And then, what was it? Chad from Mudvayne also sang in that.
Yeah, also, for a time, Greg was in it as well from Mudvayne.
But just to top it off with Nothing Face, so we don't drag on it too long, you know, I just feel like Violence and Audio Guide to an Everyday Atrocity just are essential alternative, new metal, whatever you want to call
Sure.
them. They're fucking heavy and they're really
Yeah.
great albums. And what a good band to have that many pieces of good music out there in their short-lived career. So don't forget about Nothing Faced.
Yeah. It's a shame they fell off, but you know that's the whole point of the show. Is like we don't know the reason these bands disappeared, but they did have some great work while they were around.
Yep, exactly.
So I'll move it along to one that I got hip to in the early 2000s, as a lot of the metal fests were being put on in the hall shows. The Sweat Fest stuff is a name I kept hearing, and this is before this became almost like a naughty word that you can't say because the government's going to peek in on you, but the band ISIS.
Oh, okay.
So you got, not to be confused with the terrorist organization. Yeah. So this, I mean, I don't know, ISIS probably was always a thing, but you weren't worried about saying the band name back in the day so much, but so they are a band out of Boston formed in 1997, and I'm trying to see exactly how many albums they had out. I got hip to one in the middle of I think it was their second album, In the Absence of Truth. Came out, 2006. That was an album for me that was a game changer. There wasn't really a whole lot like it when I discovered this band. So it's kind of like a progressive metal band, a lot of distortion, a lot of ambience, long songs. They almost drone on. They kind of almost give a bit of a doom feel.
Okay.
But at the same time, it's not as much doom as it is like just layering and building into the next riff.
Okay.
It's not chaotic at all, really. It's very tempered and like a simmering thing. It just takes a while for it to kind of boil over and get to the heaviness.
Yeah.
But then it'll just kind of drop out into like this really chill, atmospheric,
So they got some
atmosphere.
heavy dynamics to them. Yeah, okay.
Very heavy. And again, another band where you could throw that alternative metal at them, but
it's saying like American post metal.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So they've got Oceanic in 2002. Oh, actually, did they have more before that?
Yeah, it looks like they got a gang of shit, dude.
Yeah, but it looks like they were done around 2009, 2010.
Yeah, so 2000, Celestial in 2000. That looks like
the original. Yeah, Celestial and other early releases, it says.
Yeah, because they show some EPs in 99, 98. Damn, they got a lot of shit out.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so there's a lot of older stuff,
Yeah.
but just on the back of the one that I knew so well,
What one was that?
In
you
the
said?
Absence of Truth.
Okay, so around 2006?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm living in Kalamazoo at this time.
So this is almost towards the end of their existence.
So a lot of people were really high on what they were already doing with Panopticon was probably really popular with some of their bigger fans, and Oceanic. I tune in, a little late, but love that album. And then, they basically... So I was reading about them the other day because I actually think they're coming back. But they collectively decided we've done all that we've set out to do. This wasn't a matter of there being drama or other issues. Artistically, they just felt like we're done, and I think here is a quote where one of the members said, "We didn't want to push past the point of a dignified death." So you get to a point where maybe, hey, we've done 5, 6, 7 albums. Where are we going with this? How much more can we do? Let's hang it up and do something different instead of like
a dead horse.
Either that or just change the sound so drastically that it's not the band that you started out as. So I think if anybody is into, I mean, the vocals were really like Fry heavy.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a lot of singing on this. If you're into that kind of like almost doom progressive style of metal,
so like Neurosis, Godflesh, stuff like that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The Neurosis would be a big one I would compare them to. If you're into that style of music, I would check out some of their work and or just look forward to whatever they've got coming out. Because I do believe I read a couple of articles indicating that they are reuniting.
Yeah, I see this one thing here that says 97 through 2010 were years active and then one-off reunion in 2018 so far, but now it's 2025 and everybody's getting back together, so I wouldn't be putting that past
that
any band at this point.
That and every band's trading drummers or firing drummers.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess there's enough musicians to go around, you know? So.
I guess. You ever listen to any ISIS or not familiar?
So I'm not that familiar. This kind of music isn't the first thing that I put on.
Right.
I remember you talking about them before, and obviously familiar with them with the name because of the name itself. You know, there's a band called ISIS, but no, it might be something I have to actually dig into and check out because
I mean,
I'd give anything a shot, man. You know,
I feel like knowing you, it's just one of those things too where I'll tell you, it's like it's pretty slow.
Yeah,
and you're not going to get that trot or you're not going to get a lot of energy out of it. It's just kind of like it's a really brooding, like. Heavy force
tension, like
a lot of that, and there is a little bit of that release because they'll go, like I said, they'll dip out,
dynamic and stuff,
and there's a lot of slow build. Like for me, and especially with music and movies, I like a good slow burn. I like a simmer, like just as long as it's well written, you know. And that's the way I feel about their music. A lot of textures and layers. So
that's a good
ISIS. I mean, we'll see. I just recently read that they're coming back, so we'll see what happens. But,
so real quick before I jump into mine now, is this something that you're going to go dig into some more of their music now that you brought the band name up?
I probably should. There's a lot of music to listen to that's coming out in 2025. You know, so like I'm behind on new releases. Do I have a lot of time to dig in? But I'll say this, just based on the fact that, you know, it appears they're reuniting and teasing, you know, either a reunion tour or maybe a new album. I might have to revisit some of the things that I missed because I'm really just high on the one album, and you know, and that was at a time when there's a lot of Tool fans looking for other things that sound similar or better than, you know, like Tool at the time, maybe even then was getting long in the tooth. You know, like I think we were waiting for 10,000 days, and so it was like, give me anything else, please, because I need my Tool fix. So.
Which makes sense. Did they not go on tour with Tool too?
I think they did.
I thought they did.
It says ISIS were the opening act for Tool's late 2006 North American tour in support of their new album, 10,000 Days.
All right, sounds right.
So they fit in that vein for sure.
Awesome. All right, so for my second one, I'm going with Animosity. Are you familiar with Animosity at all?
Only by name.
Okay, so I guess you could call them an extreme metal band. They're from San Fran, California.
Okay.
Active from 2000 to 2009. So just a very, 9 years, which is a short period of time in human life, really. But they were like an early deathcore. They were the Riff Soup guys. And when I say on this show, when we talk about Riff Soup, and I say sometimes, I like chicken tortilla soups. I don't like soup a lot, but there are certain soups that are really good. And these guys are like chicken tortilla soup, like just really good with a nice fucking crunchy tortilla, nice amount of spice, nice amount of cheese.
Just right.
Yeah.
Just right. Not a soup guy.
No, not a soup guy.
But a chicken tortilla soup. Now you got me.
Now you got me. But, so they were just very technical, fast, crazy. Like I said, Riff Soup all over, but just this crazy technicality to them. They're almost like some grindcore tech death. Maybe this wouldn't be the thing for you, but shorter songs, kind of to the point, shorter albums, really. But they were also known when they were on the scene because they were like 15 and 16 years old, and they were like kind of prodigies because they were playing so badass, so well, and they were just one of those bands that kind of fit into all that early Suicide Silence, all that early 2000s deathcore stuff, all shall perish as Blood Runs Black, Animosity. They all kind of those were all A bands, but but that era, fucking so. They were fast, aggressive, complex, and zero compromise. So you got Leo Miller on vocals, Frank Costa on guitar, Chase Frazier on guitar, Evan Brewer on bass, and he later went to the Faceless and Entheos. And then that Nevan Koperwies dude, he's also drums for Entheos. That dude, Nevan, I think his name is, or Nevan?
Nevin, maybe.
Yeah, Nevin. And said he also played drums for Animals as leaders and sometimes Whitechapel Live. So, so they came out with an album, Shut It Down in 2003. Now this one, I'm not super hip on Shut It Down, but this is when they came on the scene, so they kind of made a name for themselves, just being young kids ripping on the scene. But Empires is the one that I have, and Animal, and I still listen to these to this day. Just great production on them for what it was in 2005, and just to the point, punch in the face, kick in the nuts. Sometimes I like that. Just steamroller, fuck you. Get out of my way, just screaming, fucking noise, all kinds of stuff going on. And just the technicality of it. And then they were also kind of known that they had just kind of a little bit of jazz influence rhythms because they had like very complex time signatures too.
Right.
Like it's riff soup, but it's not just riff soup for the sake of riff soup. There's a lot of technicality going on there, a lot of thinking, so a thinking man's music. But as far as these guys go, I just remember this is a band that I'll still, just not too long ago, a few weeks ago, I listened to this band because for the short time that they were around, I think they made a great impact. I have actually even seen them with Brain Drill and Black Dahlia Murder, and that was badass.
Nice.
And then obviously everybody knows Evan Brewer's name now because of how great he is at bass, He played with the Faceless and Theos, and then but yeah, I mean, Band's Job for a Cowboy, Oceano, Beneath the Massacre, The Red Chord, they all kind of fitted in with that era of this deathcore, this early deathcore stuff.
Right.
But for me, they were kind of like ahead of their time at that time. Super aggressive, super forward-thinking approach, and it was raw power and zero compromise.
A lot of technicality too, as opposed to now. Did they do the crushing breakdowns too?
Not really. They have some groove, but the groove is very limited with them. It was more about the technicality and speed, But it wasn't always just blast beats either.
Okay.
That's the thing, It wasn't just grinding you to death on some fucking snare for 35 minutes. It wasn't. There was parts like that, but it wasn't the whole enchilada, But yeah, just wanted to bring up Animosity. I know that's one you're not completely familiar with, but
that's
put on a song or two and check them out. Just see what you think about them. That's you got to take it for what it is. They were just pissed and fucking early deathcore shit,
Yeah, and if they were so young, it's probably obviously Evan Brewer's gone on to quite a few things after this band. There's always a chance that they could reunite, do it again if the timing were right. Especially if they were so young in the first place. So, yeah. What said out of San Francisco?
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Not familiar. Not really at all. Not in the least, just other than the name and hearing about them in passing. So, it's something that I'll have to do a little homework on. Looking at homie here in the photo, he's wearing a death symbolic shirt. So now you really have my attention. Now I'm going to listen to some Animosity, especially, and I feel bad because Evan Brewer is such a great bassist. I almost kind of want to know everything he's done and at least have the ability to say, yeah, I listened to it. Evan's on that. It's like I have to listen to anything this cat does. So, yeah, I think I might even dial it up on the ride home. Why not?
Yeah.
Like just throw it on a quick YouTube playlist. But
just take it for what it is too. You know?
Well, on the subject of death, I have to bring this one up, and I know you're gonna. I don't know if this one's gonna be on your list, but our boy James Murphy did a band called Disincarnate.
Damn, that's crazy. That was my next one.
Oh, shucks. Pulled the rug right out.
Fucking.
Yep. Disincarnate. They did one album in 1993, Dreams of the Carry-On Kind, and that is a front-to-back banger.
Mm-hmm.
And we've probably told this story a half a dozen times on the show, but I'll remind everybody that I owned this album, and it's great musically, but I couldn't get with that vocal at the time. Like that, it was like kind of like that low monotone.
Yep.
She didn't do a lot of high pitched screaming. I was like
basic death metal.
Yep, but I really didn't appreciate this one as much as I do now. I own this album again these days because I'm an idiot for treating it for an album that was okay, not bad. But, and it was something that I like because you were spinning it and you're like, yeah, I got this album. I'm not really high on it. And I'm like, well, I got this album. I'm not really high on it. And
was it the Asphyx?
Yeah, the Asphyx.
Asphyx.
And
okay.
I forget it was God Cries.
Okay.
And great album. I don't know what happened to that album either. That's another one of those lost in time. I might have taken some things that I had grown out of and sold them.
Just got rid of them.
Yeah, like, what is it, Recordings and More or something on Broadway? Yeah. I don't think that guy's still in business, but he did a community service for many years. He would buy them for dirt cheap, But that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't listen to him anymore. I
Yeah.
just need one or two noobs
Yeah.
in the collection.
So he had a couple of nice little joints in there that I would get out of there every once in a while.
Oh, yeah. But, the Disincarnate, James Murphy, Roadrunner Records, they did reissue this album in 2004. I might own the reissue, but unfortunately, we did lose their drummer not too long back. Tommy Viator had passed away. So he had also worked with Acid Bath and Shroom.
Okay.
So I think James posted this recently. So, about a year ago now, as it was mentioned.
Okay.
So he might. So James Murphy might have just posted like a 1 year to the day of his passing, like remembering his friend. Because I knew it was not that recent, but it was fairly recently. But yeah. So I know you love this band. We both love James's work. One of the early virtuosos that we stumbled upon, courtesy of Death and Spiritual Healing. So what more did you want to add to the discussion about this band? Because man, one album, there should have been 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And look, if you're doing death metal now, don't sleep on this album. Go listen to it.
Yeah.
Like this is still like relevant in my opinion. It's just they only did the one album, and I don't know if it was because of James's health issues that were like coming into play in his life, or if he just moved on to like, all right, I did this album. I don't know James's full history.
Right.
I absolutely love the guy. I do know that he had the tumor that he had removed behind his eye, and had his eye removed as well.
Yeah.
And so that was causing some difficult times in his life. But I'm not sure if that's associated with the Disincarnate only doing like one album. But
I'll tell you what I got here. I got a couple things here. So Dreams of the Carrion Kind that we're talking about, 1993, the one album, but the band Disincarnate, obviously. He did an amazing job on this record. He kind of showed that, he was kind of the second gun in a lot of those other bands, or he was kind of the guy. And I think this was the album that he put out to say, hey, I can do this just as good, or if not better than everybody else. And he actually showed that. So it was on Roadrunner Records, but it was very intricate, melodic dissonance and brutal efficiency. And Stench of Paradise Burning, super badass, tightly wound riffs, eerie melodic leads, and surgical drumming. Soul Erosion, that's an awesome track too. And then Monarch of the Sleeping Marches.
Can hear it now.
Great hook on that. Even though the vocals were kind of monotone, at least they had the hooks and the callbacks, so you had a little bit of that. I do remember this album sounding awesome too at the time.
Yeah,
but a couple things here. It's kind of like they're almost as brutal as Cannibal Corpse, but like progressive like Death. But also emotive and melodic, like at the gates. So like you combine those things together, and that's kind of what you get for Disincarnate. And then, so why one album? Shortly after the release of Dreams of Carrion Kind, Murphy's attention shifted to touring with Testament and working on solo material, notably his 1996 solo album, Feeding the Machine. Despite interest, Disincarnate never released a follow-up, partially due to changes in the scene and Murphy's eventual battle with his brain tumor in early 2000s. He survived and returned to producing, session work, and mentoring, but Disincarnate remained dormant. Murphy has teased the possibility of a second Disincarnate for years, often saying it's written, just never recorded. So I would like to know if that was true. I'd have to hear that from James's mouth.
Yeah.
But that's just something I found online. But I mean, for us to be sitting here talking about a band that was only around for one album, you got to say how good the album was. And it's on both of our list of all the bands that we could have picked on our stats.
Yeah.
So,
this one, I thought I might be sneaking it in, like, oh, maybe he'll forget or overlook this one. But no, a testament to the fact that it has impacted us both profoundly over the years. One that when I went back and I listened to it again, I was like, oh, God. I wasn't hearing it right the first time. And I think, again, part of my problem then was that vocal. Now I'm fine with it because now we have worse vocals.
Yeah.
We have way worse vocals.
You've seen way worse.
Now I listen to this guy and I'm like, oh, he's a he's great. He's a pro. I can understand what he's saying.
Right.
Like, I mean, not everybody has the ear for the fry vocal, but you kind of develop it over time. But there's no way you can tell me some of these bands now you can understand a goddamn syllable. Like, you're lying. Like, he might be saying something, doesn't mean you can understand it.
Right. Exactly.
Now I can listen to this older stuff now, and I can understand damn near every word. You know, if I focus my attention on it. But Dreams of the Carry-On Kind, what an amazing release, James Murphy.
Good, dude.
You're a king. I absolutely love what you've done for metal at large over the decades. You know, but this one was a true masterpiece. You know, and I always smile when I think of Disincarnate, the original, the OG Disincarnate. We have another Disincarnate that
with a Y, right?
Yeah,
or something like that. Yeah,
and
I think I listened to that, but
I've heard it, but I can't say one way or the other what they sound like, and that's no disrespect. It's just one of those things that I have to do more homework on. And there's only so many hours in a day. I can't listen to all albums. But this is one I listened to many times.
All right, so I think it's my turn now.
Go for it.
So I'm going to go with this one. Don't know how much you know about this band, but this band had an impact on me. Brain Drill.
Yeah, I'm familiar. Alex Webster, right?
No, Marco from
Cryptopsy. No,
Marco. Lord Marco.
Yeah, I thought he's not Cryptopsy. Who is he?
Marco,
the drummer, though.
Petruzila. I can't ever say his name right.
What band was he in?
He was in Vital Remains, and Anomalous.
Okay, I've heard his name before.
But he also plays in 6 Feet Under now and Waking the Cadaver. So, Brain Drill. Yeah. These guys, they formed in 2005, and they built a reputation quickly for being one of the most insanely fast and complex bands in technical, brutal death metal. For me, this is when YouTube was really kicking up, and I remember watching Marco's videos all the time because Adam showed them to me when we were at practice. He's like, you got to watch this guy. And it was like the early shitty, like one camera, almost blurry YouTube videos, you know, when all the YouTube shit was like kind of bad, you know?
Potato.
But he just was on the electric kit, and he was just sitting there fucking doing a one-hitter. And it was fast, and it was just him and the guitar player. And the guitar player was playing it live along with him. And then just this technical sweeping and all these tapping riffs and all this fast. And we were just blown away by it. And so, you know, you put this in a lump of bands like Origin, Necrophagus, Spawn of Possession, stuff like that. But it was, the technicality was so precise, but it was so unhinged at the same time. You know, it was just like, you know, just a whirlwind, your head's spinning. And Brain Drill is a perfect name for the band because that's how it felt after you got done listening to them. But Dylan Ruskin is the guy that was the main guitar primary songwriter. And then this is when I got introduced to Lord Marco. And like I said, I actually got to see Animosity and these guys in Black Dahlia Murder all play at the old Intersection one time. And then Jeff Hugel was in the band at one time, and he actually was in Vile and later in 6 Feet Under.
Okay.
But yeah, these guys just, the reason why I brought them up, because it was just one of those bands I've seen on my CD rack. I got a couple of their records, but they were some of the early adopters of this fast as fuck tech death metal stuff, like doing the stuff that people have never really done before, except a few bands that can hang like an Origin or something that been doing it. But they really push the boundaries. There's a lot of bands now that, like the Disembodied Tyrant, or you know, like the what's the Infinite Annihilator. You know, it's gone crazy fast, just out of this world technical. Yeah. But these guys were kind of some of the first dudes to be doing it like that in this new age of like death metal. So they came out with the Parasites demo 2006, and then Apocalyptic Feasting on Metal Blade in 2008. This is the one that I really liked. But you know, there's no grooves, there's no hooks. It's just overwhelming tapping, one-handers, gravity blast.
Would you compare him to maybe some Dying Fetus as well?
No, because Fetus always has the groove. Fetus always has the groove. They always have like the breakdown. They always have the chug riffs, the slam riffs, like and then they'll have the grind in between. These guys are just straight tech all the time, and the tapping riffs. You know, Fetus can get technical on the guitar, but a lot of the times, you know, especially when he's singing, he's doing more of the
you're right. When I think
like
about it,
that.
They do have more of a groove to them. And I'd listen to some Brain Drill, and I see the association I got with Alex Webster. He recommended them in an interview. So around the time of the release of Apocalyptic Feasting, he was gassing them up. Also, a friend of mine who's a high school classmate of ours recommended them as well to us. So I was like, oh, that's interesting coming from you. Not exactly a metalhead, but a guy who listens to some metal. He's like, hey, you got to check this out. Whether you like it or not, you at least need to be aware of it. So I do remember listening to some of it around that time. And again, you know, my love affair with metal music is, you know, kind of like a roller coaster. Like I'm into it heavy now, but there's also times in my life where I'm like, I didn't listen to a whole lot of metal.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like some Gojira, and then that's all I need. Some Lamb of God, you know. But so I hear something like apocalyptic feasting, and I'm like, too much.
Yeah,
can't do it. Now I have a lot more appreciation for that, especially as we dig and we dig and we dig and we listen to everything we possibly can. You find, you know, like, yeah, now I don't like have such harsh judgments of styles. I'm like, they're really good.
Yeah.
They're good at what they do.
Yeah.
How much am I going to listen to it? Don't matter. I might see them along the way. They might be on a bill, you know, like just know what it is and then, you know, stand and enjoy the musicianship of it. If you can play, if you can play whatever you play and you're good at it, I'm going to have a lot of appreciation for it. And these are some masters. Like, these are some kings on their instruments.
Right.
So
they put in the 10,000 hours for sure,
man.
you know.
Yeah. So the brain drill, you know, when you mention it, I'm like, yep, it's a lot of grind and a lot of technicality and fast as far as I remember. And just like the name fits perfectly.
Yeah.
It is the brain drill.
Yep.
So
and then 2010, their last album was Quantum Catastrophe. I think Lord Markle wasn't on this one, if I wasn't mistaken, but they had Dylan Vitic in there.
Okay.
On that, and I almost want to say I might have to look this up because I didn't beforehand, but I want to say, oh yeah, that didn't work. This is why we need a looker upper on the show. Okay, it didn't come up. I thought the Dylan was from a different band, but I couldn't find the information on that. But anyway, just as far as, you know, Tech Death 2000, you're looking at, you know, like I said, their demo came out in 2006, so it's still early 2000s. You're pushing this Tech Death to the next level. You're getting on that YouTube bandwagon. That's how I discovered them.
Yeah.
So for me, these guys are pioneers in this, you know, era alongside of like Origin or Necrophagist.
Yeah.
That early, just crazy shit. Probably going on to inspire bands like Inferior, Arc Spire, and Rings of Saturn, stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
But Metal Sucks said they made music for machines, but somehow humans played it. So that's how crazy these guys are. Then they have been inactive since 2000s, you know, 2010s. And, you know, Marco now plays in 6 Feet Under touring, I know, and he plays in Waking the Cadaver. And Jeff Hugel, he does stuff, I believe, with 6 Feet Under as well. So, yeah, I mean, they went on to do other things. But if you're into, like, as technical, as intense as it can get, Brain Drill is one of those bands. And they just left an impact on me, especially getting into Infinite Design, because we were trying to do that early days. So, like, bands like this, we were like, how the fuck did they do that?
Yeah.
You know? So,
yeah.
And this is where we really got introduced to the Gravity Blast. And I think that's why that was such a, I mean, John Longstreth from Origin was doing it. But Lord Marco made it famous because he was the first one that you've seen, like, the YouTube videos of him doing that fucking Gravity Blast. And then you do it with both hands. It was fucking crazy.
The two-handed Gravity Blast.
Fucking dude's nuts.
One arm falls off. I still got the other one.
But all right, go check out Brain Drill.
Yeah. I'm going to keep it in the vein of very intense musicianship.
Nice.
But totally different style.
Okay.
And this is a band that when we got hip to them, it was like the best thing for a hot minute. And that band is Into Eternity.
Jesus, dude, you're stealing all my shit.
Really?
Yeah, that's my next one.
Really? Again? We don't rehearse this shit. We didn't even talk about any of the list at all.
We need a third co-host for diversity on this show.
Oh,
we need some diversity.
That's funny. So this band,
buddy.
This band out of Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada, formed in 1997 by Tim Roth.
Yep.
And I believe he was a graduate of the Yngwie Malmsteen Academy for Guitarists.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, and and you know, when you listen to the album, it's like, oh my god, this guy is one of the best shredders on the planet.
Yeah.
You know, but he's not just like a wank look at me shredder.
Right.
I think he's got a lot of good taste.
Yeah.
Great songwriting. I loved this band. Let me look at the album. I want to just make sure I get the right one here. we've got several albums. Buried in Oblivion, 2004. So this is their third album.
Yep.
They already had self-titled Dead Were Dreaming prior to that. 2006, they go on to write Scattering of Ashes. 2008, The Incurable Tragedy. You get a 10-year hiatus, probably some member changes along the way. And they've got 2018, The Sirens. So, basically, if you're taking 10 years to write an album and then it's been 7 since the last one, you're like, they kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
Like you've fallen off or you're busy doing other things. I don't know. But this is a band that when we discovered Buried in Oblivion, it was just one of those things where you got to have it. You got to have it. I can't wait to hang out with you to hear it. I got to have my own copy because I had it stuck in my head. And it's one of those progressive metal bands. They definitely are very technical, but the songwriting is there. You've got the fry vocal. You've got the clean vocal. You've got the keyboard, kind of background atmosphere. They weren't a big keyboard band, but I think it was there.
Yeah, there was some there for atmosphere, like you said.
And just all in all, just some amazing musicians. Let me see here. I want to make sure that if it was Tim Roth or was it Stu Block was the vocalist at the time. So, and I'm looking for other names, but yeah, that's the main that I could speak to. I think that I would welcome an Into Eternity in this world again. It's been 7 years. I think they've replaced Stu. Well, it says he's still in the band, but I also see like this female vocalist.
Yeah, I thought there was some kind of
Yeah, I don't know if the ladies appreciate the
So-
word female, but yeah, they have a woman heading the band. Is at last check. So, but they haven't done anything in 7 years. This is why they make the list, is because they had a good, discography from the early 2000s up until 2008, and they don't do anything for 10 years, and they drop one on you. So I just feel like, that's a band that, for whatever reason, again, I don't know why, but they disappear, right?
Yeah. I think for me, I think some of it might be the borderline on power metal.
Yeah.
Because it does borderline on technical power metal at some points.
Yeah.
So that's always a real niche thing,
Mhm.
especially in niche metal already.
Yeah.
So, just with the high vocals and all that, I'm not saying it can't succeed because everything is accepted nowadays, and things come back like we talked about before on the show. But, as far as technicality, progressiveness, they fit along the lines of like Death, Nevermore, Dream Theater, Opeth, you could say, but they had their own style, very technical. I mean, they had a lot of different weird, timings in their music and stuff too. Just not everything was 4/4, but they had some great groove. I know all of the members in these bands were all like, we talk about proficiency and technicality. Into Eternity had 4 or 5 guys that all were badass at what they did. It did say that the earliest lineup was Roth handling guitar and clean vocals, joined by Chris McDougall on keyboards, Scott Carroll on bass, and Justin Austin on drums.
Okay.
So I know at one time he was just the vocalist, and then, like you said, then they got Stu in the band.
Yep.
I love the names of their albums.
Yeah.
Into Eternity, Dead or Dreaming, Buried in Oblivion. I mean, and then, Dead or Dreaming, I remember that one being amazing too. So Buried in Oblivion is kind of like their magnum opus, right? But at this, that was kind of like their their fucking slaughter of the soul. But what a great band. What a great sense of melody. What an awesome band at songwriting, vocal melodies. Like, they got technical as fuck.
Yeah.
What a great band.
Yeah, and I'm reading, it's weird because I'm on their wiki page just looking at their current lineup, and it does list 2 lead vocalists. It's got Stu Block on there, initially 2005 to 2013, and then, hiatus or what have you, and then they've got 2021 to present. But it also lists Amanda Kiernan, lead vocalist 2013 to present, and also a touring member 2012, 2013. I don't know if they got the dual lead vocalist thing going on at last check, or if Stu is out of the band, because I do have this paragraph right here where it says, in a 2013 interview, Tim Roth confirmed that Stu Block was no longer a member and that they would continue on with Amanda Kiernan as full-time vocalist.
Okay.
So a lot of lineup changes followed that, so I don't know if they've had some difficulty. In 2021, following his departure from Iced Earth, Stu Block returned to the band to share vocal duties with Amanda Kiernan. So I think maybe they're just trying to make their way in this world. And again, like you said, niche market, right?
Yeah.
Like just great band, however, not a big market for their style.
And you got to think, Stu Block, he went on to play in Iced Earth, so that's another kind of like power metal-ish type band. So these are the bands that we're talking about. I felt like these guys are a little closer to the Nevermore, where it was a little closer to the death metal with the higher vocals, because they did a lot of the fries, where Nevermore didn't really do the fries.
Right.
But so that is the one thing that separated them from being traditionally just strictly power metal.
Yeah.
But sometimes they would get high on them vocals.
Yeah. Also,
the screaming eagles, man.
Not just the fry vocal with this band, but the music. When I think of power metal, I think a lot of major key. I think a lot of upbeat. Just kind of like that 1-2. And it doesn't have a lot of bite for me. I'm like, oh, you got a great vocalist. He can hit the high notes, but the riffs are kind of cheesy.
Yeah.
Whereas with this band, I didn't feel that way about any of their riffs at all. It was, when you say the word Nevermore, like, yeah, that's a lot of Nevermore in there. Maybe some Sanctuary.
Yep.
But you got that fry vocal. They've got super heavy riffs when they get down to it.
Yep.
Thus, you have the fry vocal. So Into Eternity, I don't know if they're out there still maybe contemplating doing another album or bringing it back together. But what a great band, especially if you're the type of musician who likes that technicality, but also the musicality too, where you want to be a shredder, but you want to write tasteful solos. You want to write tasteful passages that aren't just like brutal slamming death metal, trem picking, and palm mutes. It's like, no, we got scales and we know how to use them, and we're writing something very musical. So for me, definitely in my wheelhouse, especially just on the back of that one album. They've got some other work I'm not as familiar with, but I had to bring them up. When I saw that name, I got a list of about 20. I was like, that one I can speak to. I know that one. I love that one. I think I dug the CD. I got the rack of the things that are good.
Yeah.
Then I got the rack for the things that are okay.
Yeah.
I like. And then I've got the box in the next room. I think they were in the box in the next room just because, like, I'd listened to that album so many times. I'm like, I don't know if I'm bringing this one back out again, but I dug it up and put it on the good rack. It's where it belongs. I think it's just one of those things where you kind of lose touch, and you're like, I've heard it, and they don't do anything anymore, but they deserve to be on the good rack.
Yeah, for sure.
Love that band.
All right, well, that was mine, so...
Sorry, bro.
No worries,
Make
man.
one up on the spot.
It's cool. It's all good.
It was almost 3 because I was going to have Nothing Face. I should have come out with Nothing Face first just to really fuck your day up.
All this work, damn it. No, it's all good.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So was that your last one, though?
No, well, let me check my list. I'm crossing them off as I go, but...
Because I think I'm on. That was 5 for me.
3.
I'm on to my honorable mentions at this point.
I guess it was. That's fine. You got some honorable mentions?
I do,
bro.
I got some honorable mentions. So the first honorable mention, we're gonna go. So this band has been active for a long, long time, but this is a band that I just felt like probably needs more recognition. So this band could have probably gone on another list, and I won't spend a lot of time talking about it because they did just call it quits. But Misery Signals is a band that I absolutely love, and a band that I just feel like never got the shine that it probably should deserve.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, they've been around since 2002. They were the early kind of metalcore style, but they had their own, like a lot of clean passages with their music as far as the guitars.
Okay.
And I love their style always in Misery Signals. They had the 2 guitars that always kind of played something different. They were always playing off of each other. Then they could get heavy when it was time to get heavy.
Right.
But they've formed a lot of different music over the years. They started introducing like some clean singing, and they started really diving into that melody. But almost anything these guys have put out that I listened to was absolutely awesome, and they've always been part of the scene. But I won't spend a lot of time on it, but that was one of my honorable mentions. Was a Misery Signals.
That's funny. We had a lot of misery in this one.
Yeah, I got more, but we can just keep bouncing the honorable mentions off each other.
Well, I crossed off Nothing Face as if it were one of mine, but I only count 4 that I gave you: ISIS, Disincarnate, Misery Loves Company, and Into Eternity.
Okay.
So I'll speak to one more.
Sure.
And it's I got it hidden right here. but it's the Black Crown Initiate.
Okay.
So I think they did 3 solid albums. And let me pull them up real quick. But as we talked about in the beginning of the show, Andy is now working in Rivers of Nile. He's touring. They're out doing the thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
But Black Crown is one that a mutual acquaintance of ours turned me on to, and that was Josh Rocher from Structural Concepts.
Okay. Yeah,
and he listens to a lot of metal, but he hit me up with their second album. He says, "Hey, I really think you might listen to this." And it was Selves We Cannot Forgive. So that's my introduction to this band. And I listened to this album and I was like, oh my God, this at the time, I'm like, this is one of the best things I've ever heard. How do I not know about this? And they had a heavier album prior to that. And I think a lot of the OG fans are still high on the Wreckage of Stars. Like that is more heavy, more intense.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of progression as you get into Selves We Cannot Forgive. And then you get out to their third release, Violent Portraits of a Doomed Escape. And I've turned that one on to, like, say, a Ross Morgan, where he heard it and he was like, oh, dude, this is amazing. Like, he loved that album. I don't know if he'd be as into the Wreckage of Stars, but I remember sitting down and listening to that third album with him. And he was, and that's the shirt that I'm sporting today. I was going to save it for the next interview. But this is a band that, for whatever reason, they just kind of disappeared after that third release. And I thought they might break out.
Yeah.
Because now you're not as intense as you were with the Wreckage of Stars. Like that's a lot happening on that album. Now I felt like this had more breath, more space, more tension release. The songwriting had kind of progressed, but the musicianship was still there. Top caliber. When you're talking about Andy Thomas on guitar, just one of those guys that can do it all. And I have just such mad appreciation for them. They're out of Pennsylvania, so same as Rivers of Nile. I think same town. So it makes sense where they say, hey, if you don't have anything going on with Black Crown Initiate, we could use your help over here. And they did make a social media post. It was James Dorton, their vocalist, and Andy Thomas, like, hanging out together or whatever, and they said that they are going to continue and do some more Black Crown Initiate, but haven't seen or heard a word since that post. And I'm not sure.
That was in 2024, right?
Sounds about right.
Okay, because I'm reading this here, and it says, it looks like all of the members kind of went on to play in other bands and stuff.
Yeah, it says 2024. It says guitarist Andy Thomas and bassist Nick Shaw were back, stated that Black Crown Initiate would hopefully be releasing new music when time permits.
Yeah, Thomas is probably wrapped up with the Rivers of Nile, especially just coming out with that banger, and they were just touring. I've seen them on this tour here, and they were just incredible, and I was like, this band is the shit.
Also, I see January 29th, 2025, so just a few months ago, Ne Obliviscaris announced that James Dorton was joining their band as the new permanent vocalist, following the departure of their longtime vocalist, Mark Campbell. Yeah. So, yeah, just a band that when I discovered them, I was kind of surprised that nobody else had ever mentioned them to me, and they hadn't crossed my path at all. But, hey, eventually they did make their way into my ear holes, and I loved it. I could still listen to Selves We Cannot Forgive. It's timeless to me. When I first heard it, especially the title track, I was like, this is permanent. Like, I'm going to love this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I loved, again, another one of those bands similar to Into Eternity, where you've got the Fry vocal and the clean vocal. And they do both very well.
Yeah.
Mean Fry vocal. Just, I love that Fry vocal from him. And he's not too diverse with it, but just the tone of it and just how angry it sounds. And I think it's Andy who handles the clean vocals in that band. I'm not sure if James does any as well, but just amazing clean, soaring cleans, and you get that on that new Rivers of Nile, which I know their drummer sings as well.
Yeah, he sings a lot of the high stuff, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
I was surprised because when I seen him live, I was like, oh, I didn't know he was singing.
Yeah.
And he does a lot of the high cleans.
Yeah. I thought
But Andy does too.
I thought David Biggs, their bassist, did a lot of clean vocals. I can't remember now, though, when we saw them live.
Well, when we seen him, I thought the bassist was doing clean vocals, but then when I seen him on this tour, the Chaos and Carnage, like, they looked way different.
Yeah.
And it was a whole different thing. Like
Yeah.
the bass player seemed to handle all of the heavy shit, like
Yeah.
all of the
So,
fry stuff.
Was that after the departure of their vocalist and he was handling all the fry vocals?
Yeah. So then Andy was in the band at that time too.
Okay.
But that was like, I don't think they played anything off the new record because it was just 2 years ago. So they're probably working on it then, you know.
So they're on tour right now, Rivers of Nile, and I'm like, I keep ignoring it because they're coming to they came or were coming to Detroit on a Tuesday. So every time I see the flyer, I'm like, God damn it. And they're touring with Holy Fawn, whom I appreciate a lot. That's a band I want to check out and listen to some more of their stuff as well. But I just have to keep ignoring it because I can't make it. You know, and it bums me out. You're gonna hit it like Detroit Rock City on a Tuesday. Can't we get a better date and time like for Detroit? But I get it when you're in like a niche progressive death metal band, you know, market, you know, like I feel like I want everybody to go check out the new Rivers of Nile. They're not one of those bands that's disappearing. They're coming up.
Yeah,
you know, I want
dude, when I seen them, even Shauna loved them. Like, that's how good they were. She was like, these guys are good because they did a lot of the clean singing.
Yep.
Saxophone player came out and played the saxophone.
Yep, several songs probably. Yeah.
So it was like, it was really cool. So.
And I feel the same way as I was listening to it. You know, sometimes you have that lens where you're like, my wife might appreciate this, who's not a metalhead. And but it's still heavy as can be. Like, you're not going to tell me this ain't one of the heaviest albums out there right now. But just the fact that they could find those passages and there's the clean vocals and, you know, there's just enough melody there where you're like, maybe I could bounce like House of Light off of my wife and see how she feels off, you know, listening to that. But yeah, so the Black Crown Initiate, you know, they're on the long-term hiatus because of the fact that Andy Thomas is now playing with Rivers of Nile. I'd be interested to see if they ever do bring that band back, or maybe we're just going to let it just kind of be a thing that happened, and now Andy's really happy and settled in Rivers of Nile because end of the day, maybe not a whole lot of difference between those two bands, you know, but with Rivers of Nile, I feel like you have another tier of musicianship between their drummer and bassist and their other guitarist, whose name escapes me at the moment. I think it's Jason, but good God, they are just all monsters on their respective instruments.
Yeah,
so
badass.
Yeah, it's Jared, excuse me.
But yeah, I've never really, I remember putting one of their albums on, the Black Crown albums.
Okay.
And I remember listening to 2 or 3 songs and I really liked it, but for some reason it was just one of those bands that I don't remember listening to the whole album and I never got back to it. And I don't remember why, but I do remember liking it, what I heard, but it was one of those bands that just kind of fell by the wayside and I didn't give them as much attention as they probably did deserve. So
yeah. Actually, their current songwriting guitarist is Brody Utley. Jared is their drummer.
Okay. Yep.
But yeah, just great musicians, all of them in the band. And the fact that they added Andy to it just puts it a little over the top to where my expectations were so high. I was like, there's no possible way, even with Andy, that I'm going to like this. They're going to somehow deliver something to me that I'm not going to appreciate. Jay, why don't you fire off a few more of them honorable mentions
So
for us?
honorable mention, I won't spend a lot of time on these honorable mentions, but I do want to just mention a few names.
Okay.
I'm going Strapping Young Lad, bro.
They were on my list, at least of honorable mentions.
Yeah, so, you know, Strapping Young Lad, you know, Devin Townsend.
Yeah.
There's talk he said he'll never bring this back, I guess. Right. But for me, this is, you know, I do like the Devin Townsend stuff and all the different projects, at least some parts of the music here or there. It's not all for me, but some of it I really, really like.
Yeah.
Some of the, you know, because you have like what the Devin Townsend band.
Yep.
And then the Devin Townsend project, and then Devin Townsend.
Sure.
So it's 3 different things. Like that's where I get confused. I don't know what I'm listening to. I don't know what's happening. It's all the same thing or what?
That, and he also has, you know, like Physicist and Terria and Ocean Machine. So they're all like these one-off albums. He doesn't call it the Devin Townsend Band. It's just Ocean Machine. You know, he doesn't call it Devin Townsend Band. It's Terria.
Oh, okay.
So, and I, you know, if I'm misinformed on this, that's just my interpretation of it over the years collecting these albums myself. But I didn't see like a big Devin Townsend Band presents Terria, you know.
Yeah.
He's got Infinity is another one. He's just got so many different monikers for these different moods, you know. But yeah, I think I'm in full agreement with you. They did what, a handful of albums, 5 or 6 albums.
Yep. Years active 94 through 98, and then again in 2002 through 2007. So that's kind of the last time we heard of them. felt like they had some success, but Heavy is a really heavy thing. 1994.
Yeah, demo.
But then City, what a
Oof.
fucking awesome album.
Yeah.
Gene Hoglan, obviously, we were turned on to that because we were like, oh, Gene Hoglan's on something besides
branch off the death tree.
So that's kind of where we picked that up. And then we got introduced basically to Devin Townsend. And just how many times did we play that record? City, I mean, probably
just another one of those.
Wore out the tape, then bought the CD and burned a hole in that from listening to it so much because damn, it was good.
Yeah. Oh my fucking God. And that track alone, when you get to it, you were, you weren't prepared.
Yeah. So, I just really quick wanted to speak on the Strapping Young Lad. I didn't really do any research on these honorable mentions, but just some bands that I wanted to mention. I didn't really get into Alien that much, but no particular reason other than that. I just wasn't listening to SYL around 2003, 2005, because at that time, that's when I was getting into the brain drills and the animosities and shit like that. So
it's tough to top that City album too. And I also, it's to me, I wonder, like, was Devin under pressure to do the SYL thing to fulfill contractual obligations or whatever, because it didn't quite hit the same for me. I think that second album was good, or second album, the follow-up to City had some good songs on it. Shit, Love, those are titles that still stick out to me now as titles.
Wasn't it called Love or something?
I'd have to look it up, but it's just an album that I was like, okay, it's good, but I'm always going to forever be stuck on City. But let's see, this 2005 was Alien. 2003 just self-titled. No, was that maybe not it? I think that was it. They must have had. Or no, Alien was maybe
Alien was
the follow-up.
Yeah.
But, just a band.
Yeah, because Love was the name of the song on that album, Alien. Yep.
Okay. I'm trying to find the track list. Here we go.
Yep, then they had the New Black after Alien. Those were the
Shit Storm was the name of it. Get your shit together, Nick. I think when you talk about forgotten bands, I was looking at it through a different lens, and it's time for us to forget about Strapping Young Lad because Devin's leaving it.
Yeah,
he's leaving it behind.
Yeah.
He's like pretty convinced that he's done. Not only that, Devin's also said recently he's taken an indefinite hiatus from touring. So I don't expect that in his hiatus he's going to rediscover a love for Strapping Young Lad. He's probably wanting to like chill out and take it easy. Is the feeling I get from a statement like that?
Yeah,
like I've been out here road dogging it forever. I'm ready to not do anything, let alone something as angry and chaotic as Strapping Young Lad.
Yeah.
But yeah, Strapping Young Lad also on my list as well, brother. I'm with you there.
Industrial metal, death metal,
grind,
lots of shit going on there.
Borderline grind.
Yeah, pretty cool shit though.
Love it.
What you got?
A Life Once Lost. I think they put out 2 albums.
Okay.
And then just kind of dipped out. We got to see them with, I believe, at least I did, Black Dahlia Murder and If He Dies, He Dies at the intersection. So I was happy to at least get out and see A Life Once Lost. They kind of had a bit of that Lamb of God vibe going on.
Yeah.
So their sound was kind of already floating around with some bands, but I just absolutely loved what I was hearing out of that band when I got into their material. So early 2000s, and just a band that, we hear today, gone tomorrow.
Yep.
And I wouldn't mind revisiting some of that work because I was enjoying it quite a bit. Not overly technical.
No.
But just super aggressive,
Yeah,
in your face.
It was like that Ferret era of like bands or whatever, kind of like that metalcore. You could call them metalcore, that early metalcore style. They weren't the metalcore of the soaring chorus like Kill Switch metalcore, but they were that hardcore crossover metal type stuff.
Okay,
that's what I remember.
Oh, they've got quite a few albums as I'm looking at it. I was familiar with Hunter, but it says Ecstatic Trance
2012,
a great artist. 2003 Iron Gag. So they had several albums, but yeah, again, they haven't done anything since 2012. So now you're 13 years removed from your last release.
Yep.
So yeah, a band that I enjoyed. I think also from Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, in fact. Metalcore, groove metal, gent. So yeah. What else you got, Jay?
I got a couple more here. So we're gonna go with another like new metal band.
Sure.
And this band, you just tagged me in one of their posts. You're like, did you see this? So they just came out with a new song.
Yeah, I know how you're going.
So
Yep, I know
40 Below Summer.
Yep, really enjoyed that band.
I really like this band, and this is one of those bands that I loved one of their albums, and then I took a break from them for a long time.
Okay.
And then I came back and listened to some of their later albums, and there were bangers. And I was like, oh, I was sleeping on this the whole time.
Right.
Because they were still doing stuff after I was kind of out of my new metal phase.
Yeah, that's
because
the
these
reason.
guys came to me through the new metal phase, but they did so much more than that.
Right.
Now that they're coming back, cool, whatever, but it's been years since they've done anything. So it's like, I think 2011 might have been one of the last times they've done something. But if you go into Invitation to the Dance, that's the one that I really liked.
yeah.
It was
Step into the sideshow.
yeah, exactly. They were kind of like coming on the scene with like Slipknot,
Yeah.
Mudvayne, those
I think-
type of bands. So they really fit in with that.
I think Clown produced that album. And he
yeah.
was kind of like name dropping them or gassing them up.
Yep, exactly. So, and then they were kind of in that new metal phase where they're touring with different bands like Factory 81 and Chimera, El Nino, shit like that.
Yeah, Chimera's another one.
Yep. And then put out The Morning After. Great melodies, great singing on it. That's one thing I always liked about these guys is they had great hooks, but great singing too. And then The Last Dance, another good one with great songs. And then they broke up from 2006 to 2010. And then these are the ones that I was talking about. Fire at Zero Gravity. And that is a fucking awesome album, man.
Okay. I like the artwork.
So yeah, 40 Below Summer, just real quick. They got quite a few records, but they did go on a hiatus and they kind of come in and out of relevancy or whatever. But I didn't listen to the new song because I'm waiting for the album.
Yep.
But I did appreciate the tag to show me that it's up.
Yep.
But just a band I've always liked. Another band that's kind of like I would consider them real close to the Nothing Face style,
thinking
where
the same.
it's not all new metal. He doesn't rap at all or
Right.
anything. It's just product of the times again, you know, like.
And also, you know, like when you get into using these genre labels, it becomes apparent where it's a broad brushstroke because you say new metal and then you're like Korn. Well, not everything that's new metal sounds like Korn,
Right.
you know. So like, it's just the reason we kind of say new metal is because it's not your traditional thrash metal.
Yep.
So like, just looking at it from like almost a historical standpoint, like you got your thrash metal and your death metal, you know, moving through the 80s and 90s, but then you know, grunge kind of comes in and just everything falls apart, it feels like, and new metal picks up. You know, you have this whole stylistic shift. So, but not everything is Korn or Deftones, you know, when we say new metal. I think that it's just heavy music.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, the label or the genre label that they get it with is new metal just because they're a product at that time, that era. You mentioned Chimera. That's another one that I don't know if they're coming back. I thought I saw some recent.
Yeah, they're actually playing some touring. They're on some tours right now. I heard Mark on, I believe, the Josta podcast.
Yep. So I think we would be remiss if we didn't at least mention this name, and you can speak to it more. I don't know if you had it on your list or not, but Necrophagist.
Oh, okay.
I mean, 2 albums and
Yeah.
they're done.
Yeah.
But that's a band that you're more familiar with, and I probably could stand to familiarize myself with it, but there's so long ago now, I almost feel like, what's the point? We've got a lot of bands that sound like that now.
Yeah.
But I know that for the time, they were ahead of the game.
Yeah.
And one of the most technical surgeon-like guitarists ever, especially for that time.
Yep.
But for me, I think it was also just a matter of like, okay, that's a lot of grind and a lot of blast, or just a lot of technicality to where I'm like, oh my God. And again, another instance of that low guttural being like the main
vocal.
the only
yeah, because
vocal.
he sang and played guitar.
Yeah.
But, you know, the big thing with Necrophagist, and it's almost like hand in hand with the Into Eternity type thing, where there was a lot of melody still going on there. Like, there's some brutal riffs, you know, but like at least he did do a lot of melody and use a lot of scales and different stuff to piece those, you know, compositions together. Whereas you have a band like an Animosity or a Brain Drill or an Origin, that's a lot of grind. It's technical, but there's not a lot of melody either.
Yeah.
There's just chaos
Speed.
and dissonance. Whereas Necrophagist, they could get a little bit into that, but it was more about the timings,
Yeah.
you know, the riffs and the melodicism of it. But yeah, but we wouldn't have Arcspire and Fury or any of those type of
Aborted
bands.
maybe.
Without a Necrophagist.
Yeah.
So yeah, 2 albums, and you still got people fucking talking about those albums all the time online, wondering when they're gonna. It'll never happen again. But it is a good one to call out. Was Necrophagist for sure.
I got a handoff for you right here too. Another one I'll just give to you. Your boys in Cephalic Carnage.
Oh, Cephalic Carnage.
Cephalic Carnage. I know you could probably speak to them more, but I don't know that they've done anything in years.
Not really. Nope. They're playing a tour right now, and it's only like 3 dates, and there's like a couple cool bands on it, but they're just a very hit or miss. Like 2 years ago, I think they played a festival or something. They're just like real hit or miss, and they're not as active as what I would like to see them be. But yeah, that's definitely a band. The only reason why I didn't say that band because that was one of the bands that we talked about on the John Roan show where we did the underrated bands. So I kind of try to stay away from those bands that
we already talked about them once. I never want to hear them again.
No, not necessarily, but yeah, they definitely could go on the list for sure. I'm just going to throw out Glass Casket out there because they just came out with an EP, but another band that had a few things and they were fucking awesome and ahead of their time, and then
Adam Cody, guest on the show, doing Holy Roller. And I know he talked about Glass Casket when we had him on the show, and he said, I felt like, maybe there was some more Glass Casket, or at least it's something that he would like to pursue, but also he did express that it was like that band is a whole mindset for him that is really dark and maybe hard for him to go to. So if he's not feeling like doing that, understood. Like same with Devin and Strapping Young Lad. Like he just don't want to go to that headspace. You don't want to make that a big focus in his life. Gotta respect it. Like he's still got plenty of other music out there, man. Like, do what makes you happy. Definitely don't sit there and hole up in a room and write something that you're just not going to be happy with at the end of the day, or just makes you feel, like too dark or morose. I'm going to fire off rapid fire a list of bands. I'm just going to say their names.
Yeah, sure.
That they disappeared, but now they're going to come back.
Okay.
So I thought like they had at least a space on the show. So you got your Shadows Fall.
Yep.
They're returning. All Shall Perish.
Okay.
Dipped out for a long time. Now they're coming back. You got, I'm going to come back to them. You got Chimera, which we mentioned. Mudvayne dipped out for a long time.
Yeah.
They're back doing the thing. Nevermore.
Yep.
Super curious how that's going to pan out.
Could be back.
Yep. So they announced it. You mentioned 40 Below. You got Chimera. We mentioned Faith No More. Like they disappeared for a very long time.
Yeah.
And they came back. They did what, maybe 1 or 2? You'd have to tell me if you know.
I think they did 2 albums
after the comeback. And now you had Mike Borden in the news saying like we can't get Mike Patton to do anything. Like we just can't get him on the phone or in the room or to commit to anything. So and I feel like just removed from what we just said about Adam and Devin, I feel like it's the same thing with Mike Patton. Like I don't want to do it. I can't get in the room to do that music. I got to do something else that is more fulfilling to me and where I'm at in my headspace now. So I think that's that list. But yeah, they all maybe on the comeback trail. Well,
nice.
With Faith No More, not so much, but I did have them in that because they did come back. They came back for a time after their disappearance, and now they're gone again.
All right. Well, I got one last honorable mention, and I don't know if you've ever heard this band. I don't know how many people ever heard this band, but I just thought I would throw a little gem in there. I just one CD I came across that was awesome. The band's called Viatrophy, and man, they formed in 2005, split up in 2011. They only have like a full length out called Viatrophy that came out in 2009, an EP that came out in 2007, and a demo that came out in 2006. So. This self-titled album, though, I just remember being one of the heaviest, coolest things that I've heard. Tons of melody. It kind of remind me of like the Soilwork style, but with a little more heavy on the breakdowns. But I just remember a few of these songs going from one breakdown to the next breakdown was just some of the heaviest shit I've ever heard in my life. So yeah, this may not be one that not many people know about, but I don't even know how I came across this CD, but just one I wanted to throw just somewhere for our, if we ever listen to these episodes when we're 50 years, 75 years old and we want to find a cool metal band to listen to. This Biatrophy is definitely worth taking a spin.
Say they just did the one album?
That's it.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
They got a Facebook page too, but it hasn't been active since 2018.
Yeah, sounds about right. So
I've not heard of them. I don't even recognize the artwork.
yeah, this album is fucking punishing.
Punishing.
And it's not death metal punishing. It's punishing like heavy. You snap your fucking neck, groovers just the whole time, man.
Yeah.
But cool melodic guitar work too. So almost your metalcore leaning into your deathcore probably.
Gonna fire off
it.
a second list of bands that I don't think they're even coming back. They just some bands I don't really mention, and that's Fair to Midland, and they're more like a heavy hard rock thing. But
Okay.
they had some screams on there, but most of it was clean singing and a really cool singer too, by the way. Sadis. Yeah, I mean, they basically kind of fell off. I don't know if they're going to do anything again.
Yeah.
Last I checked, Steve DiGiorgio wasn't in the band. God forbid, maybe on the comeback.
Yeah, I thought I heard them guys might be coming back too.
Skeleton Witch was a band that hasn't been very active over the years, but I think they did one maybe 2018 or 2020, something like that.
Okay.
And I really dug that one. It was blue cover art. Symphony X, prog metal.
Okay.
They've kind of fallen off. So that's the last of the shout outs that I had for honorable mentions. All music that I've enjoyed over the years, but haven't been very active or never coming back for that matter. But nice trip down memory lane.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah.
Some things I'll have to check out.
And I love, because a lot of times I'll go back and listen to these episodes like before I post them or whatever. Lately I've been trying to get the audio dialed in because now that I'm using Reaper, I have all completely different settings. So the last few pods that we put up, it's not the audio sounds bad, but it's just I need to get a few more things dialed in. But I'll go back and listen to the episodes, and then I'll just like put that album on because it just is a trip down memory lane talking about all these albums. There's just so much music. It's so hard to, like you said, even in 2025, it's almost like the list you put together should be based on if you're going to actually give it another spin. Because some stuff I won't even respin because I just don't have time to listen to it again. Like I listened to New Cradle of Filth and I thought it was good, but is it another spin worthy?
Yeah.
There were some great parts, but probably not, but that's just my taste too. I'm kind of lukewarm on them.
Especially for like the thing that we're doing where you're not just listening to all of the albums that are dropping in 2025, you're also listening to all the local artists and the DIY and the independent stuff. So you're trying to stay hip to what everybody's doing in your neighborhood. And also, like you want to also maybe like I come over for your birthday party and we're listening to Death Symbolic, just rehash one from the past. So you're trying to make room for some of the things that are just kind of like on your brain. But if we weren't doing this, if we were just regular people that listen to metal, we might be like some people we know where you just stop listening to new music and you only listen to what you already know.
Pantera.
Yeah, and you don't try to even find new music.
Yep.
But me, I listen to the satellite, so I get a lot of music that way.
Yeah.
Or there's the YouTube algorithm where I'll dial up an album, and then on the right-hand column here's 10 more for you if you want. Like, you like full albums? Here's a bunch of new albums or full like 50-minute videos.
Yeah, right.
Check these out.
Yeah.
So I'm finding new music all the time. And that's all in the metal world.
Yeah.
And there's music outside of metal that I want to listen to.
Me too. Yep.
And I'm thinking to myself sometimes, I'm like, I'm going to go for a walk with this dog, but what am I listening to? Should I squeeze in a metal album or am I not in that headspace? Maybe I just want to hear some acoustic guitars, you know?
No, you're absolutely right.
And
I'm the same way because sometimes I'm just like, I just want some easy singer-songwriter stuff. I'll put on some Bill Murray, just something to jam to sing to. Just all the time, the grind. I can't do it all the time. I know we talked about that, but
I sat around with the family yesterday before I went out, and I put on like a couple of country songs or just things for the family to listen to in the same room.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not trying to drive my wife and my daughter out of the room with some scary ass death metal that they're not trying to hear, like the kid, if it gets too raucous for the kid, she's hilarious. She sits there with her Chromebook on the charger, like in a beanbag chair. So she's like right beside the TV. But if she don't like what's on the TV, unplugs it, picks it up, marches, just
see you later.
Don't say nothing, just and then I just try not to be killing their eardrums. Sometimes in the car though, I fuck them up.
Yeah,
I just crank it up. But yeah, man.
All right.
Nicely
well, that
done.
being said, I'm gonna have a nice trip down memory lane. I got to go use the bathroom. So
goodbye.
Much love. Keep it metal. Peace. Thank you so much for checking out the episode. Be sure to hit that like button and give us a share.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed our podcast today, please give it a rating on your streaming service to help us gain some exposure.
And if you really enjoyed the show, please give us a follow or hit that subscribe button and come hang out with us every week. And remember, keep it metal.